Many of us who follow entertainment news have noticed there's a disconnect between what critics' scores are on movies and what audience scores is. Last Jedi is kind of a good example of this because you can see a wide disparity between the two. But yet now we're getting some interesting development on why certain things like this can actually happen. So I got this article from Vulture that kind of broke this news just the other day. The decomposition of Rotten Tomatoes, the most overrated metric in movies, is erratic, reductive, and easily hacked, and yet has Hollywood in its grip. Now, according to this article, it's talking about the movie Ophelia that came out in 2018, and it describes it as a feminist retelling of Hamlet starring Daisy Ridley. And this kind of goes on to say critics who had seen early screenings had published 13 reviews, 7 of them negative, which translated to a score of 46% on the all-important aggregator site Rotten Tomatoes. A disappointing outcome for a film with prestige, aspirations, and no domestic distributor. So what happened is Bunker 15 was a PR company, or is a PR company the studio has hired to try to gin up some positive reviews for this. So what they did is they actually contacted people and basically paid them $50 or around that for a review, at least according to the person coming forward in this article. And what he said is he was contacted by them basically saying like, hey, there's this movie Ophelia. We think it's a lot better than what people are giving it reviews for. We think it was kind of treated harshly. Maybe you can check it out. And it's not saying outright, we'll give you $50 to give it a positive review, but this person did ask them like, well, what if I don't like the movie? Then they'd say like, well, then you can publish it on a blog that Rotten Tomatoes doesn't see. Because what people don't understand with Rotten Tomatoes is a lot of the times it's not big critics or big name critics that people know of that actually are part of the aggregation on it. Because going back to The Last Jedi here, I mean, 487 reviews, you click on it, a lot of the time it is just kind of like random accounts or whatever. I mean, there's some that are more there's some that are more known, but a lot of times they're a little bit more obscure, and a lot of times it's self-published. So it's just these small time people who are whatever, they're maintaining their own blogs and own publications or their own websites. And that's how it kind of gets aggregated on this. And that's what places like Bunker 15 actually do. They try to contact them and say like, we'll give you money to review this. And if you give it a bad review, don't put it somewhere where it's not pulled from for Rotten Tomatoes. And that's why a lot of times I also say like take the critic score with a grain of salt, because you don't necessarily know the motive behind it. But with audience score, I think it's a little bit more genuine. But at the same time, there is certain things like Rotten Tomatoes doesn't allow paying for reviews like this, but studios still pay for reviews inadvertently. Like they're going to do like a screening for a big movie like this. So okay, what do? You fly out a bunch of journalists or a bunch of critics, you wine and dine them, show them a good time, give them expensive goodie bags and put them up in fancy hotels or whatever. Then when they're leaving, it's kind of like, hey, remember how much fun you had, how we treated you when you're writing your review on our movie. And if you give us a bad review, it's kind of implied that they're not going to get invited again. I mean, that's why you'll see on movies that like, even if they're giving it a negative review, it'll try to frame it in as nice a way as possible, versus if they didn't have that treatment, then maybe they would have been more harsh to it or something like that. And we don't know how it works, but I mean, that's completely acceptable on Rotten Tomatoes because that's not necessarily paying for review. It's just basically facilitating a screening of a movie, which is completely allowed. And people wonder why movies have such huge marketing budgets and it's literally just for stuff like this. But this is, like I said, with Rotten Tomatoes, this is kind of all fine for them. But also we got some other interesting news about them too, because Rotten Tomatoes has also come out and basically changed the way the site works in order to actually protect the movie, because there is some close connectivity, or I would call it an incestuous nature, between the executives at Rotten Tomatoes and at Disney. And when Captain Marvel was getting savage, they kind of contacted them like, hey, can you do something about this? So they actually changed the way the site functioned in order to actually try to protect it, because beforehand there was a feature that said, do you want to see a movie? Yes or no, or what? And the people not wanting to see the movie was really just like coming out of the woodwork and to say that they didn't want to see it, which made it look bad leading up to the release of it. So Rotten Tomatoes took that function out because they didn't want to have that comparison on there. And obviously that was done just to protect this movie. And they've made a statement about why they were doing this or why they're changing their site or how they're changing it. But in all honesty, it really was just to try to protect the movie that people were upset about because of statements Brie Larson made. But this is just on the surface level here, because you would see that studios are willing to go all out to try to protect their movie, because a lot of times there's some of these bigger budget movies have hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. So that's why they're spending hundreds of millions to actually market it. And now I'm just curious about other things that are happening with movies like this one that came out about ObiWan. When Moses Ingram was cast in the character in the show of Reva, she was told after being cast, you're going to be attacked by racists online. And it's almost like they knew what was going on, sort of thing, like hint, hint sort of thing. Because I'm wondering if there's PR companies kind of like Bunker 15, but instead of paying for positive reviews, they're basically PR companies like, you just have like a bunch of employees that maintain like a dozen or so Twitter accounts. And it's like, yeah, you just kind of maintain those accounts so they don't look like complete bots or whatever. And then once we get hired or whatever, they'll say like, hey, can we hire you to attack this person for being black or being gay or having a woman in there or something like that. And then these companies will do that, because what they do with, and at least in the situation with Moses Ingram, they said like, oh, she was being attacked by racists online to try to get some sympathy and try to get positive publicity around the show or something like that, as if Star Wars fans are racist, considering there's been black people in Star Wars since the start of the original Lucas trilogy. So I don't know. It seems like they didn't have much of an avenue to go by, so they just kind of used the low hanging fruit, which is like, yeah, it's racists don't like this, which didn't make sense. But that I don't know this is what's happening right now, but I have speculated for a while, and a lot of people have, that they're paying for good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. So maybe this is going to be the new things that come out. I mean, who knows? But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.